All right, gamers, today we're going to look at the game Kings of Israel. Let's check it out. Now to set up for the game, what you're going to have is you're going to have your player board here. You're going to have the little crown marker here that's going to mark the rounds. You'll start off right there with Saul. And of course, you're going to put all your cards either to this side or this side. It really doesn't matter. I just put them up on this side. You're going to let all players grab one card from the ability deck, and that will be their permanent ability in the game. Now, I've already drawn out two here. Now, as you see here, we have a Merchant and Terrifying. The Merchant says you can hold up to 8 resource cards in your hand at one time. That's cool because usually in a regular game you can only hold up to 6 of these. You can have more than 6 in your hand at one turn, but by the end of your turn you must discard down to 6. But not if you're the Merchant. He can hold 8. This other guy's Terrifying. He may move a sin cube from his location to an adjacent location for free. And these little black cubes here, those are the little sin cubes. So you can basically move it to any other place adjacent to them. And of course you're going to pick up one of these little prophet tokens here, whichever one you want to be. Let's just be these two, I guess. And on your little ability card, it also tells you where you're going to start. So this guy starts in Joppa. This guy starts at Mount Carmel. So I'll put one in Joppa and the other one on Mount Carmel. And then you're ready to play. Now you see I've already set up the board with sin cubes and golden calves. What you're going to be doing to start off the game, you're going to be drawing cards from this location deck and placing sin cubes in those areas. Now how it goes is you'll draw as many players as there are in the game plus 2 out of here. So in this case, in a 2-player game, I would draw 2 for the 2 players and then 2 more actions. That'd be 4 cards, and for each one of those 4 spaces that I would draw, I would put 1 sin cube in that area. Then I would go back through this deck, of course just revealing one card after the next and putting whatever sin cubes I need to put on there in the deck. And then if for my next thing to set up with 2 cubes, it would be however many players there are plus 1. So in this instance, I have 2 players. Plus next one, I'd draw 3 more of these cards, and I would put 2 sin cubes in each one of those. And then finally, the last thing you need to do for setup is you need to draw as many cards as there are players in the game, and that's where you would need to put in golden calves. Golden calves are a lot harder to remove in the game. I'll talk about that in a minute. And now you're ready to play. By the way, when you are selecting these cards, you may get a card pop up that says Nation of. You ignore those for the basic setup and just draw the next card as you see fit. Now, what are these cards? When you do draw these cards in a regular game, what you're going to do is you see the tribes here are listed on the sides of the board. For instance, this one is Syria. So I would actually have to put sin cubes both in Dan and Hazor because the little arrows point to those 2 cities. So it basically just puts cubes and more cities. And as you see, there's a lot of outlying tribes that you can really make the game very dangerous when spreading that sin around. So the starting player will get the little starting player card. Each player will also grab 2 resources from the resource deck. There are different types of resources that you can get in the game, and these are all them. These are the 5 different cards you can get. First off, wood, gold, and stone. If you have these in your hand, you can discard them, and you can build an altar in the game. Now, this is basically the win condition here. Depending on the number of players, if it's 4 players, it's 9 altars. 3 players, it's 8 altars, and 2 players, like I'm playing, you have to build 7 altars. And once you've built that 7th and final altar, that's how you can win the game. Now, other things you can do here, you got grain and cattle. These do 2 different things here. If you're at an altar, you can actually make a sacrifice with these 2 cards. Basically, just discard them, and it removes any sin cubes from that area, and any sin cube, 1 sin cube from any adjacent area. So that one's Heifer's right next to Joppa. And so you'd remove that card there. Now, another thing you can do with these cards, you can also discard one or the other, and with the ability, even says up here, to move up to 3 spaces for 1 action, which gets you around the board a lot faster. And a space is from 1 city that's connected to it to the next. Now, there are these little ship spaces here, so you can use a ship space as a movement to go here or even to go here. This basically helps you get around the board a lot faster. So, if you look at your little player board, we have the turn order here. And so the turn order starts like this: the King's Godliness phase. Starting player draws a blessing card during the reign of good, or a sin and punishment card during a reign of bad king. So wherever we're at, the yellow, we draw these blessing cards. Blessing cards are always great things that will happen to you that will help you out. And as you see at the beginning, you get a bit of a head start in that. But as the track goes down here, and as you see here, for 3 to 4 players, I'd play here. For 4 players, I'd play there and there. If you're only playing with 2, you're going to skip those spaces. So for instance, after Basha, I would move down to Omri. I would not play Elah or Zimri. I'd skip over them because this is only a 2-player game. But anyway, if you're in the red, you draw a sin and punishment card, and as you can imagine, these are really bad things that can happen in the game. Now, some of them have these little cards called foretold events. What a foretold event is you're going to put this back into the deck just under 2 different cards there, and now everyone knows it's coming. It's like you know that brimstone and fire is coming your way in a few turns, and you need to do something, hopefully, to avoid that foretold event if you can. It basically steers the direction of the game for a little while. You're trying to resolve a crisis before it happens. That's a really cool little mechanism in the game. Anyway, after the godliness phase, sin increases. Now, you would draw the number of location cards equal to the number of players plus 1. And then, so you draw more location cards. This time, you're not ignoring those tribe cards, like I said, and you're placing more cubes around the board. Now, it goes without saying, these first 2 you skip in the first round. Then after that, you'll be doing these every round. But in the startup, you'll start with round 3. And round 3 says you're going to use the prophet's work phase. You get 4 actions in the game. Each prophet does. The actions are listed on the back of the card. Let me go through these. First action is to move. So if my character wanted to move to here, that would be 1 action. Now, of course, remember what I said. If you have grain or cattle and you want to discard one of those, you can actually move 1, 2, 3 for only 1 action. You can move 3 spaces for 1 action. But anyway, you can also preach to the Israelites. So if I wanted to use an action, that's basically just removing one of these sin cubes, because I was preaching to the Israelites there and I removed that sin cube. That would be an action. I could also acquire resources. It means I could draw a card from the deck to see if I have the resources to build an altar or make a sacrifice. You can also make a sacrifice. Remember what I told you? If you had the wheat and grain, you can make a sacrifice and get rid of some sin cubes in your area. Or you can also build an altar here. I skipped over that one, but you can build an altar here. Building an altar would require wood, stone, and gold. And of course, you can't have 2 altars in the same city, but you can build them wherever you want to. And then you can also give resources to another player up to 2 cards. Now, the only rule is you have to be on the same city as them, and then you can exchange up to 2 cards with them. Now, getting rid of a golden calf is also kind of like, preaching to the Israelites, but this costs 2 actions to get rid of a golden calf. Now, how do golden calves pop up in the game? Well, easy. If I were to get another cube to go to Jabesh Gilead, then that would be 3 cubes. 3 cubes would be replaced with an idol. And that's bad, because if ever Jabesh Gilead comes back up again, or the tribe of Ammon, as you can see, who would give a cube to Jabesh Gilead, then not only would they get a sin cube, but every place connected to them, so Mount Gilboa, Tirzah, Jericho, and Hamath would all get sin cubes. As you see, that can be really bad, so you don't want a lot of those little golden calves out there in the game that could really hurt you. So after all the prophets have taken all their actions, then you go to the end round phase. Basically, you would pass that starting player card to the next player, and then move this tracker down to the next king, and then go to the king godliness phase and start all over again. Now, of course, your goal is to build X amount of idols. Now, of course, your goal is to build X amount of altars before the track gets down to Israel destroyed. If it gets to here, you lose. If you can build all the altars in time, you win. Now, that's the base game there. If you want to add a little bit more difficulty, they do have 2 other characters in the game, the thief and the false prophet, which someone can play as and really kind of screw up the game. So, for instance, let's look at the thief here. The thief does several things. He can move, of course, for an action. He can steal. If the thief is on the same city as someone else, he can take one of your resource cards from you. Really kind of hurt you there. He can also build an idol for 2 actions. He could, if he has wood, gold, and stone, he has to have those items there. He can build idols. Yikes, that's really bad. Now, the other one is the false prophet. The false prophet is actually this little token here. And what the false prophet can do is he can move, of course, he can manipulate the people, which basically he can manipulate this location deck. He can look at the top card and see if he wants to have that one or not. If not, he'll put it at the bottom of the deck. And so he can do that. He can also add sin. It's called spreading lies. He can add 1 sin cube to 1 city per turn. He can't do this multiple turns where they would get a calf, but he can actually do 1 and then move to this one. So that'd be 1 action. That would be 2. This would be 3 and maybe 4. He'd look at the location card deck and mess with it. So as you see, both of these guys would be really awful and detrimental to your game. However, you can get rid of both of them, as it says here, death of a false prophet and death of a thief. You can get rid of both of these characters by making a sacrifice on the same space as them. So you'd have to build an altar and make a sacrifice maybe in the next turn. I don't know any good false prophet or thief who'd want to hang around an altar for that reason. But if you are able to do that, you can get rid of them from the game. But these are just little things to make the game a little harder. And that is the Kings of Israel. Final thoughts, what do I think about the game? Well, you know, my gaming group does not like co-ops. And they love this game. They love it. At the Arizona Game Fair this past year, as I visited it, this was the #1 game that I enjoyed playing. I got this as an afterthought, just like to kill some time. I thought, what can I pick out that's okay? This is a co-op. I'll try it. I like co-ops. I opened it up. The pieces didn't look that good. The game had never been opened. The packs were still sealed. And I was like, oh my gosh. I almost put it back up. I was like, I don't even know if I want to play this. Looks ridiculous. And then as I started playing it, I was like, wow, that was really a lot of fun. So the next day, I checked it out of their library again and played it, and even had more fun. The more I played it, the more fun I had. And I was like, ooh, I gotta get this game. So I love, and you could say, Matt, this is just another rendition of Pandemic, and you're probably right. There is a lot of Pandemic in there. The only thing that's probably different is the foretold events. I love the foretold events because they're really bad, but you know they're coming, and it does alter your gameplay. Instead of trying to build altars, you're like, wait, we gotta stop this. There's no way we're going to win the game in 2 moves, 2 rounds. But in 2 rounds, something really bad is going to happen. Let's try to avoid that. So it basically puts you on a little bit like on a side mission while you're trying to achieve your overall goal. And that is pretty cool. But as a history major, I do have a special preference for this one. I do like it more than Pandemic. I think it's a super amount of fun. Like I said, my gaming group who hates co-ops really like this game. How much is it like Commissioned, the other historical game I have? They're a little bit different. I think Commissioned is a little bit better, but I really do enjoy this. The company that makes this, Fun Hill Games, they're actually doing a Kickstarter. April of 2018, I think. And so if you're watching this in time, you may be able to sign on to that Kickstarter. And in it, they're producing a new game, and I think they're going to do a reprint as an add-on for this game. But this game is actually well worth your time. When that reprint comes out, gamers, you should definitely pick it up if it looks like a game for you. If you like co-op games, if you love Pandemic, this is kind of the same as Pandemic, kind of a little bit different. It's pretty easy to play Plain Jane. So the first time, play Plain Jane and see how you do. You should do all right if you know what you're doing. After that, play with a thief. Play with a false prophet. It really gets hard. Add one of those and then add both of those. I mean, it amps up the level of difficulty by, oh man, a lot. It makes a big difference. But yeah, awesome game. Super good game. Love it, love it, love it. Best game I have played so far this year. All right, gamers, that's all the time I have for now. Until next time, game on!